Welcome to Mind Over Matter, where we feature young Jamaicans who are shooting for the stars. I'm your host, Margaret Boyne. And remember, if you haven't subscribed to the channel as yet, please do and hit that notification bell. Today, my guest is a young musician who has been making waves on social media. She's an alto saxophonist, a vocalist, and a graduate of the prestigious Berklee College of Music. She has performed on several Grammy albums and won awards at several jazz festivals. However, despite facing some recent challenges, her passion for music continues to shine. My guest is Tru Stanbury. Welcome to Mind Over Matter, Tru.
Thank you.
Yeah, man, it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure to having you here on this platform. You know, I've been following you on social media. So how does it feel to be a sax player well, you'd consider that the sax a male-dominated instrument.
That's true. I agree with you. I think the saxophone and the music industry in general is pretty male-dominated still. But it feels liberating. It feels great. It feels empowering to know that I play an instrument that not many play. And I like that. It's a challenge to me, and it encourages me to continue on it so I can kind of pave a way for other girls, young girls who are interested in doing what I do. So yeah, it feels liberating for sure.
So how did you start out playing the sax in the first place?
So I learned through school. I grew up before I migrated to the US, I was in Jamaica. But when I migrated in the US, I grew up in Connecticut. And I just went to public school there, and I learned through that public school system. The town was named Groton, and that's where I learned the saxophone, in that little town of Groton. And then after high school, I decided I was going to pursue it in university. So I went to college. I went to a Christian school called Berklee College, and then I decided I didn't like it. I wasn't really learning much, so I transferred. And then I went to Berklee College of Music in Boston, and that's where I finished up my bachelor's degree. And after that, I decided, I'm going to just continue on this thing, because it's just, for me, if I try to study any other subject, it doesn't stick. But when it comes to music, I'm like, this is just my thing. So I just continued on it, and I haven't really looked back since.
But I read that you're from a family of musicians. Tell me a little about that.
Yeah, so my family's very musical, especially on my dad's side of the family. My grandpa, he just passed away recently. He was very musical. He was known to be the, band director, music director, and everything like that in his community. And that kind of just trickled down. He taught my dad how to play so many instruments, the piano, the guitar, the bass. My dad plays literally every instrument. I've even given him a couple of saxophone lessons before, and he picked it up very quickly. He's just naturally musical in that way. And I got a lot of those musical genes. On my mom's side of the family, it's also very musical over there as well. My mom's grandma was like a very well-known gospel singer in the community where she grew up in St. Elizabeth. And then that kind of trickled down to my mom. My mom sang a lot, and she did professional vocal training. So she is also a natural singer. I don't think my mom has ever picked up an instrument, but singing is definitely something that she did growing up and that she's still good at doing. So yeah, both sides of the family.
Okay. But why did you choose the sax, though, out of all the other instruments that everybody else play?
It's a really good question, because there's multiple reasons, but still at the end of the day, I'm not sure if there's a set reason why.
Yeah.
I just remember that as a kid, they literally brought us into this room. Once you turn into the fourth grade in the US, they typically do this. They bring you into a room, show you a bunch of instruments, and they're like, okay, which one do you choose? Because they want to encourage you to do some extracurricular activities. And try different things, music, orchestra, whatever, band. But for me, obviously, I stuck with the music aspect of extracurricular activities. And then I looked at the saxophone and I said, that's the one. That's the one. And then
the rest is history.
Exactly, yeah.
Is it a difficult instrument to play? Because it seemed difficult.
Yeah, I would say so. I think that every instrument is difficult in its own way. The saxophone, there's the memorization aspect of learning, and then there's the doing it aspect. You can memorize how to play the saxophone very easily, I would say. But it's the part when you have to like actually blow and learn about developing an embouchure and a way to play the saxophone well. That's really where the difficulty kind of kicks in. But if I were to give you a lesson and teach you all the notes on the saxophone, that's something you can easily probably memorize in like a week or two. It's not super complex. In fact, if you've ever played the recorder, it's the same exact.
Oh, it's similar.
More than similar, it's literally identical. It's the same exact notes as the recorder. The only difference is in the recorder, you just blow into it. There's no reed, there's no ligature and all of that on the mouthpiece. The recorder, you just blow into it and the air comes out. And then also with the recorder, you physically have to fully cover the holes on there with your fingertips. Aside from those two differences, it's the same instrument.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I never thought so at all. It
Yeah.
seemed a lot more difficult. So how long did it take you to learn all of that, or you're still learning?
Yeah, no, I mean, everyone's always still learning, right? There's always things to be learned. I think I probably got really comfortable with the saxophone around my high school years. I started playing at the age of 9, so I'd say around the age of 15 or 16 is when I really got a good grasp on things. That was also around when I decided I wanted to pursue it in college or in university. But I will say though that as far as like learning the basics or the fundamentals, I think I was able to get that down in the first year or two of playing the instrument.
What genre of music do you play? Well, I think you'd play everything, but what do you specialize in?
Well, that's a hard one, you know. I think right now, if I had to pick a top 3, I love gospel. I'm not a Christian anymore, but I really love gospel music. I always will. It's just one of those special genres that just hit you differently. And I absolutely love playing gospel on my saxophone. So that's probably number 1. Number 2 will probably be Afrobeats. I don't know what it is.
Really?
I mean, we're all African, but I think
Yes.
a part of my DNA is extremely African because I fall in love with Afrobeat music. So that's
Okay.
probably number 2. And then number 3 would be like reggae, not necessarily dance hall, but like reggae old school songs. I really tend to resonate well with those songs.
Who are some of your musical influences? Who are the persons that boy you look up to in this field?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. There's one person specifically that does come to mind. She's a mentee of mine. She's actually significantly younger than me, but she's an incredible
really?
saxophone player and she inspires me every single day. Her name is Temilayo Abadunrin. She's in Nigeria. How old is Temi now? I think she's 13 right now. She's still over 13. So she's still, pretty young, but when I tell you she can play. And we met each other over social media. We met in person a few times. She came to visit me in the US. I came to visit her in Nigeria. And she really inspires me. I think what inspires me most about her is the fact that she does not allow her age to hinder her in any way at all. She just dominates the instrument and she goes out into the industry so confidently. And I love that confidence and I learn from that every day. I choose to pick up my instrument. I definitely tap into her confidence and it really inspires me a lot. She's
Okay.
definitely my biggest inspiration right now.
So you've been mentoring other young people as well?
Yeah, I have a few students over the years that I've had the privilege of working with, and they're all over in the US, US Virgin Islands, Jamaica, Nigeria, um, all over, a little bit of everywhere and in between. And I definitely try and be a motivation to others because for me growing up, I didn't necessarily have representation much when playing the saxophone. I was always either the only girl or the only Black person in the room, especially
Yes.
in the town where I grew up. It was very, very not diverse. So I had to grow up with that. And, I didn't really necessarily have a older person to look up to that also played the saxophone that was a woman or like a non-binary person like myself or a Black person. It was very hard to kind of find that representation. So as a person in the industry now, I definitely try and be that representation for other saxophonists, especially those who look like me or who can relate to me. I definitely try and be there and motivate them. Oftentimes, I'll still offer my resources free of charge if there's anyone that, just genuinely needs some advice or saxophone tips or whatever. I always encourage any and everyone to just reach out to me, via email. I usually get back. I'll send resources, all the materials I got from Berklee and everything like that. I'll just send it out because I'm that type of person to continue to motivate and inspire and just spread the knowledge. Because if we have the knowledge, we might as well share it with others.
Yes, so true. You mentioned Berkeley. I mean, that's a prestigious college, music college. Tell me
Yeah.
about your experience there.
Yeah, it was great. I think I learned a lot. I will say I learned more from the people that I met than the actual curriculum, which I would love to put out there for anyone ever interested in Berkeley.
Mhm.
Really what you're paying for is the experience,
Yeah.
not
No.
necessarily the degree or,
Yeah.
the classes. It's really like the fact that you're able to be at a school with some of
Mm.
the best musicians.
Yes, the name
Yeah, and
carries
that's
a
really
lot
what
of
you learn
weight.
from. And I love that. And I love the fact that I could just be walking down the street and I can bump into somebody who has maybe millions of followers on their social media and they're just an incredible musician and I can just talk to them and like ask them whatever I want to ask them or ask for some tips and advice on how to release music or how to produce and that kind of thing. The knowledge is just there because everyone there just has that knowledge. I really liked that. I will say, aside from like the education aspect, my experience at the school did get a little bit traumatizing. Abuse on campus for the first
Oh.
time, which is something that at the time was really hard for me to get over. Thankfully now I've
Mhm.
healed from it and everything like that. But that's kind of why I choose to like use my platform to speak out
Mhm.
about certain things like that because when you're in college and university, especially as like a lady or a girl, there's a lot of things that you can go through that people might not realize that you may be going through. And it's important for us to be there for each other and to kind of like speak up about these things so that we can have more knowledge and be more educated. We can really like be a support for those around us because that kind of thing is really important to me. But yeah, that did happen while I was at Berklee, but everything was a learning experience and thankfully I've healed from it. And now I'm just kind of able to, use my platform to speak out and be there for others who might be going through a similar situation.
And I'm glad you're able to support others, because a lot of persons would tend to keep that in, and not share such an experience,
I agree. Yeah,
you
it's
know.
hard. It's hard to kind of speak up about it. It's very hard. So I agree with you.
I see you in pics surrounded by, some older, or I don't want to say older still, but more experienced musicians, and you were there in the middle of that jamming with them as a young girl. How does it feel to be a part of that?
It feels cool. It does feel cool. Sometimes when I'm in spaces like that, before I pick up the saxophone, people assume I'm like a singer or, like sometimes you walk up to a performance and people say, "Oh, you needed a mic check for your vocals or whatever." They'll assume you're a singer. But it feels cool when I get to whip out the saxophone and then people are like, "Oh, okay, you're the saxophonist." They kind of look at you differently. But
Yes.
it's definitely again liberating and it's an experience that I'm really grateful that I'm able to be a part of. Like I'm grateful that I'm able to walk into those spaces and kind of like create a name for myself through my playing and my ability to kind of jam.
You have also worked on several albums for other artists. Who are some of the persons that you worked with?
Yeah, there's a few. There's one band, I'm just trying to think of some names here. A lot of them aren't necessarily big names, but I have collaborated with a couple of artists. There's an artist in Jamaica that I did collaborate with by the name of Yaksta.
Yeah, man.
I've played with a couple of local artists in the US. Again, not big names. One band is called Artful Soul. Um, a couple of just like not too well-known indie artists.
Right, yeah.
But most of the recordings that I've done have been for myself. I have produced an EP and quite a few singles out there that I'm super proud about. I was able to work on.
And you're also a vocalist too. I mean, yeah.
I was. I don't know if I'm much
You-
anymore.
Don't mind, you have a very sultry kind of voice there, that boy. I really like it. I think you should do
Thank
some
you.
more of that too, man.
We'll see. I used to sing a lot, but the reason why I stopped singing as often is because I actually found out I got nodules, vocal nodules.
Oh,
Yeah, so that's
okay.
why I stopped kind of singing as often.
Mm.
Because my voice, I noticed it started going away, and I didn't know what the reason was. I had to go to the ear, nose, and throat specialist, and they checked me out and had to put the camera down my throat and everything. And then they said that I
Mm.
have vocal nodules. Now, it doesn't mean I don't have to sing, because there's a bunch of incredibly talented, famous vocalists out there who have had nodules in their careers. So it's
Mm.
definitely a way to navigate it. But I think I'm just
Yeah.
a bit scared that if I continue to sing, my voice will go away completely, which
Mm.
can be a possibility.
You actually used to sing background vocals?
Yes, I did like
Oh,
VGV recordings. I recorded
okay.
lead a few times as well on some projects in the studio for some other artists.
You also seem to be a pro Jamaican true. I mean, I see you with the flag everywhere you go. What what is it about your Jamaican background that you feel compelled to share, with your fans?
So I was born in Jamaica. A lot of people don't think I was, or maybe because of my accent, it's still very American. But I was born in Jamaica. I did live in Edgewater, Portmore, up until the age of 6. And that was when I migrated over to the US. Even though I was very young, 6 years old can be very young to some people, but I still have a lot of memories from that time. And
Mm.
while I was in the US, I always kind of felt disconnected in a way to the American culture. I was always, like I was saying earlier, I was always the Black person in the room. My graduating class in elementary school had, I think, 3 Black people in total out of the entire
What?
graduating class. So not diverse at all. And because of that, I kind of felt always out of place. I didn't grow up around people from the Caribbean aside from my parents and then maybe a couple of cousins, but it's not like I was ever really surrounded by a lot of Jamaicans. And I think that kind of experience is what led me to want to explore my culture more. I really just wanted to know where I come from, even though I knew where I come from, but I really wanted to know for myself what Jamaica's like. I wanted to come back home and explore it for myself, which is exactly what I decided to do. In 2021, I started coming back more often. I came to visit my grandma, and I would kind of just stay months at a time. And ever since then, I've just continued coming back. Jamaica is just something that it's a part of me. It's always been a part of me. I've
Mm.
always been super passionate about Jamaica. When I bought my first car, I went and bought that little Jamaican flag and hang up on the rear view mirror. You know what I'm talking about?
Okay.
I'm always repping Jamaica. Jamaica. I have a Jamaican flag on my saxophone case. I have a literal phone case with the Jamaican flag on it. I'm always repping Jamaica. I love Jamaica. The culture is just so rich and it doesn't compare to
Mm.
America, especially. I love Jamaica so much more than being abroad.
Um, but you've been having though some challenges in recent times because I see you posting on social media about being diagnosed with is it an autoimmune illness?
Yeah, autoimmune disease.
Yes.
Yep.
Can you share how you have been coping so far?
Definitely, yeah. So I got diagnosed. This was in January of 2023 when I got the diagnosis, although I started experiencing symptoms around August, September of 2022. I started experiencing symptoms of lupus. My main symptom was joint pain. So in my hands,
Mm.
so badly in the morning. Sometimes I would get up and I couldn't brush my own teeth, couldn't even get out of bed, couldn't pick up the phone because the weight would be too heavy and it would hurt my fingers,
Mm.
which also affected my ability to play the saxophone because it would be painful to play. But that was my main symptom. And then after I got my diagnosis, I was diagnosed with lupus. And then I was put on medication immediately because my inflammation levels were very, very high. And it might be confusing. Not many people know what inflammation is. It's kind of a confusing concept, but it's basically something that you don't want to have because it can, in its worst scenarios, affect your organs, which we need to survive. So I
Mm.
had to be put on some medication. Yeah, I was put on steroids and some other medicine. I'm still taking my medicine every day. I basically have to take it every day for a very long time basically the rest of my life, but we'll see. I might
Mm,
explore the holistic approach. But as far as what you asked about coping, I've definitely been handling it very well. There are
mm,
some times where I do get frustrated. I've had a couple breakdowns in the past emotionally, but I've been handling it very well. I think that I always kind of tend to look at life with a very optimistic mindset,
mm,
where I just control the things I can control. The things that I can't control, I find a way to work around it and
mm,
not let it control me. So I've just been continuing with that mentality, and it's been really helping me get through this. But I will also say I have had a lot of support from my family, especially my mother. She's been an extremely big support to me. In fact, she is the reason that I probably even got the diagnosis, because at first when we were going to the doctors, sometimes, especially as Black women, healthcare providers can ignore our pain, and that
mhm,
is
mhm.
something that happens especially frequently in the US. And I remember I was in pain and they really didn't know what was going on, but my mom was the one that actually had to demand testing. She's a nurse, so she's a healthcare provider, so
Oh,
she kind of knows
okay.
a little bit about,
Mhm.
but she went out of her way to demand really that they did these tests, and she's the reason why I even was able to find out that I have lupus. So I'm so grateful for her, for my both of my parents, my siblings, my sisters, they're amazing. My boyfriend, he's amazing. I think having that really strong support system has really helped me as well to kind of cope during the
Mm.
diagnosis.
I'm very happy to hear that you have a good support system, True. And you
Thank you.
also lost your grandfather, who was very close to you,
My
Ah.
grandfather and my grandmother in the
and the
same,
grandmother.
yes, in the same year.
Oh, wow. So how were you able to manage all of this happening at once? Did it
That's a good
impact
question.
your music or anything like that?
It definitely impacted my music, yes.
Mhm.
But interestingly, before I received the lupus diagnosis and before the death of both of my grandparents, I actually was not playing the saxophone because I went through burnout and I stopped playing for about a year. It was
Mm.
after the death of my grandma when I picked up the saxophone again. In fact, I picked it up so that I could record a song for her funeral. And then ever since then, I've
Mm.
continued playing again. So it did impact my music, but it impacted it in a good way. I think going through all of that allowed me to use music as a way to express what I was going through. So it actually just improved my motivation, and it allowed me to continue to play much more than I was playing beforehand.
So playing the sax at that time kind of became a source of strength
Yes,
for you.
most definitely. It was my therapy. You can put
Mhm.
it that way.
Let's end on a pleasant note. Recently, you played the anthem. Where so the Lakers and Celtics NBA game. I mean, how big
Yes.
an achievement was it? And tell us about it.
It was amazing. And before I even talk about it, I do want to say a huge thank you to my little sister, Amanda Stanberry. She actually was the person behind all of it. She's the one that got me the opportunity, and I'm extremely grateful for her. So I do want to say that thank you to her. But it was an amazing opportunity. It actually was the biggest crowd that I've ever played in front of, ever in my entire music career. I was shocked when I got out there and I saw how many people were there. It was a lot of people, and I was very nervous, but it was an incredible experience. I got to meet some of the basketball players as well. Some of them greeted me before playing, which was like amazing. They're so tall, by the way. I didn't realize they were so tall in real life, but they're very tall. But yeah, it was a great experience, and I will always cherish that performance. That performance will forever be the highlight of my career so far.
You mentioned before, though, about mentoring young Black girls. How important is that to you, True?
It's extremely important. It's just as important as playing the saxophone for myself is. I think that me being a saxophonist is it's like something that was always meant to be. And because
Mhm.
of that, I think that my position in being a player that a lot of people look up to is something that I have to really like take advantage of. And I feel like it's a calling, but I think it's also just a part of my responsibility to be there for other Black girls, Black women, and Black non-binary saxophonists, to just kind of be a mentor, but to also be a person that can share encouragement so that they can know that they're not alone in the music industry. Because like we were discussing earlier, the industry is still a very male-dominated space, and it's really important for not just me, but any other person in the industry, to be able to make a safe space for other Black girls who are interested in being successful musicians, because it can get lonely and it can get dark. The industry it's hard to make it in the music industry.
Yes.
And especially in like the modern day popular music industry, people expect you to be a certain way, to dress a certain way, to look a certain way, especially as a woman. And it's important for us to kind of like change that, to change the narrative and to say like, hey, you can exist as your own unique self. You don't have to change for anyone else. You don't have to do what the record label wants you to do. You can just be yourself, be your most authentic self. And kind of speaking about those kinds of things is really important to me.
You just mentioned how difficult it can be in the music industry. Do you get frustrated sometimes?
I do. Get frustrated at times. I think that it's a given though. Like it's gonna happen. It's bound to happen. But I never let that hold me back from my creativity. For example, there are times, I would say like as a woman, where you might enter spaces and have to face things like sexism, or like a man that kind of thinks that they have an obligation to speak over you, or they think that you might not have the knowledge that they have. They just kind of assume for some weird reason that you're, I guess, lesser than. And that kind of mentality or being around that energy can get to you at times. But like I said, I don't ever let that change my inspiration to be creative. I don't ever let that stop me from speaking out. I don't ever let that quiet me in any way, shape, or form.
Where do you want to take your career?
Right now, I think I'm in this stage where I just turned 25 and I'm just like thinking a lot about life, like the past, the present, the future. There's a lot of directions that I could take my music. I do enjoy performing, but I think that I'm kind of gearing more to the teacher side of things, the mentor side of things, where I perform when I get the opportunity to, but I more so focus on being someone to help guide the upcoming performers, the upcoming stars, the upcoming artists. I think that's kind of where I'm interested in settling right now. I do have an organization, a scholarship that I had started, and I do kind of want to continue mentoring through that. And that's kind of where I see my music reaching more people right now, is through allowing others to get help financially, also through mentorship in the future, and just kind of being an inspiration for upcoming musicians. That's really where I want to focus my music career. I will also say, though, that I have a lot of unreleased original music that I really hope to get out there soon. So while I'll be focusing on mentorship and giving back, I definitely want to work on a couple of music videos and get some more original songs out there, and probably a couple of more albums as well.
Looking forward to hearing those originals, man.
Thank you.
All right. Do you want to hail up anybody here in Jamaica or at home?
Yeah, I'll say hi to my parents. They're in the US, but I'm sure they'll be tuning in to this. And say hi to my sisters as well. My aunts and uncles in Jamaica, my cousins in St. Elizabeth and Kingston. Want to say hi to my boyfriend in Port Moore, Jamaica, and all of my musician friends that I look up to on Instagram. A lot of you guys in Jamaica, you're so incredibly talented, and I'm proud of each and every one of you guys every single day. So continue to do your thing, and I'm rooting for you.
Okay. All right. Leave a message for young girls here who might be considering or who want to take up playing the saxophone. Leave a message for them or any advice.
Absolutely. Absolutely. What I will say is if you want to do something, whatever it may be, it doesn't have to be playing the saxophone, it could be playing the clarinet, could be trying out sewing, or maybe you want to be the biggest track star in the world and you want to make it to the Olympics, whatever it may be. If you really focus your mind on it, like you're super dedicated and you focus your mind on it, it is something that you can accomplish. And I know you can accomplish it. And I'm proud of you in advance. So definitely encourage yourself to go for that thing, whatever it may be. Life is too short sometimes to kind of like forget about our passions. So I'm encouraging you, if there is something like that you're super passionate about, I'm encouraging you to go for it. If no one's told you that yet so far, I'm being the one to tell you to go for it with your full heart. And it's going to be a way that you'll be able to reach so many other people. So I'm encouraging you to do it, do that thing.
True, it was great talking to you. I mean, it's so easy talking to you. You have a lovely
It's
personality.
great talking to you.
And
You as well.
I want to thank you for being here on this platform, and I'm looking forward to hearing you play live before you go back to the States. And
Yeah,
it was a pleasure having you here.
of course. And I also want to say thank you to you and to your platform, because before I didn't know much about it, but then after I was able to check it out some more, I was able to just see all the beautiful things that you're doing. It's important work. It's so important for us to uplift the young people.